most pressing matter that needs to be taken care of is the edge position, right? You obviously have Chris Rumph under contract. He was a guy that has underwhelmed in his first 2 years. He hasn't really done a whole lot, and he's not somebody that you can count on to go out there and get consistent pressure on the quarterback, right? If Bosa or Mac goes down again. What you have to do here, in my opinion, in my humble opinion, you got to re-sign Kyle Van Noy. That's a guy that has to be re-signed. He was very, very, very important last season. And I know his stats weren't all that great, right? Nothing to write home about, right? He didn't, break any records or do anything like that. But he's a guy that started to come on towards the end of the season. He started to come on towards the end of the season. He started to get more pressure, right? He started to win his one-on-ones, right? His one-on-one numbers look really, really good towards the end of the season. He was able to get pressure, right? And he was able to be a consistent on the other side of Khalil Mack, right? He's obviously not Joey Bosa. He's obviously not Khalil Mack, but Kyle Van Noy is a damn good player in this NFL. So to me, if you're going to make any move, right? If you're going to make any move, if you can make just one more move, that's the move to me to make. You have to make sure that your edge is solidified, right? And now in the draft, you can have some flexibility, right? If there is an edge that you like, if a Nolan Smith falls, right, then obviously you can take him. If a Lucas Van Ness falls, right, you can obviously take him as well too. But with the resigning of Kyle Van Noy, you can actually, be a little bit more selective with who you pick at edge, right? Knowing that, okay, we got this guy locked up for this year, right? We can be a little more selective, right? If there's a player that we don't actually really, really, really like, we don't have to take him just because we have to fill a hole, right? Just because we have to fill a need. I think it allows the Chargers to have some flexibility as far as the draft goes. And the whole thing about selecting the next best available player, that comes into play if you re-sign a Kyle Van Noy. So I think that should be taken care of right away. There should be no issues with trying to bring Kyle Van Noy back. And I don't think I don't think it's going to be an issue, right? The longer these guys stay unsigned, the more their earnings go down, right? Their potential earnings for the 2023 season, it goes down. And that's what the second wave of free agency is, right? It's kind of playing a waiting game. I know teams do it, I know players do it, but the closer you get to OTAs, the closer you get to training camp, right, with guys being unsigned, the more and more their price goes down, right? Now, we're still early in the second wave of free agency, right? So I don't think their price is dropping extremely low. But the longer you wait it out, the more time these guys go without being signed to a team, the lower the asking price has to be. And that's just the way it is. Kyle Van Noy signed with the Chargers last year. I believe it was after the draft. So if they're looking to do a deal around the same time, will he be available? Possibly. Possibly. He's a good player. I know he can help a lot of teams in this league right now. And I think he has a lot to offer, his experience in New England, his Super Bowl experience, all of that stuff. He has a lot to offer a team. So if the Chargers are thinking about locking him up, I think you got to go now. Kind of, it's got to be within the month. I think you got to offer him something, allow him a chance maybe to counter offer, negotiate, whatever. But I think you have to offer him something right now. He's been sitting out there unsigned. He was a guy that was productive for you. And again, with the age of Khalil Mack, with the injury history of Joey Bosa, right? You absolutely have to bring in another veteran edge. I don't think it's even a talking point at this point right now. I think it is something that you have to do. You must do it. These guys, they play very, very tough. They play, rough football, right? Both of these guys, Khalil Mack, Joey Bosa, they're both physical players. And both of them are a little injury prone, right? The older they get, they've played a lot of football. They've been banged up, throughout their careers. You have to have some insurance outside, because if you don't get any pressure, if you don't get any consistent pressure, this defense is not going to get better. It is what it is. That's what it looks like. This defense is not going to get better. You have to have somebody that is going to be able to generate consistent pressure off the edge, right? And again, if you want to count on Khalil Mack and Joey Bosa being healthy all season long, right? We hope so, but the way that things work, the way that things shake out historically, when you look at this league, guys who are older, guys who are injury prone, wind up injured. So it wouldn't be a surprise, it wouldn't be a shock to me if either one of those guys winds up injured, right? And then what are you going to do after that? You can't just throw Chris Rumph out there and say, "Hey, go do what these guys do," because he just doesn't have it. He doesn't have it physically, and he's not that type of player, right? He was a 5th round pick for a reason. We get it, we understand it, but I think the Chargers, they have to cover their backs here. They really do. You have to get another edge player. This defense really hinges on those two guys being healthy, right? And they decided to restructure their contracts. They decided to bring them back. So obviously the Chargers are expecting something from those guys. They're expecting something from that duo this season, right? And again, I've had my reservations about it, but what's done is done. They will be back. They will be Chargers in 2023. So, what happens if they do get injured? What is the plan? What's the backup plan behind them? As of right now, it doesn't look like there is one. It really doesn't. Doesn't look like there is one. I know that there is a lot of talent as far as edge rushers in the draft, but you have to have a contingency plan, right? Blaming everything on injuries every single season is not going to work. It's just not going to work. You have to have a contingency plan. So Tom Telesco, Brandon Staley, knowing that this team is injury prone, looking at 2022, right? Looking at all the injuries, they are fools if they do not prepare for something similar in 2023. You cannot use the injury excuse in 2023. I don't want to hear it. I really don't want to hear it. Yes, you hope for the best. You hope that these guys can stay as healthy as they possibly can. But this is a game of collisions, right? This is a very, very tough physical game. 17 games, right? Plus, if you plan to have a deep playoff run, you're looking at upwards of 20 games, 20 games of collisions, right? And, with very little time in between, right? A week or so, that's not enough time for guys the age of Khalil Mack, for guys with the injury history of Joey Bosa. That's not enough time to really recuperate to get back to 100%, right? So you're going to keep, just chipping away at your health week in and week out. This is a very scary proposition for the Chargers. Defensively, things can go very, very, very bad if they don't re-sign Kyle Van Noy, or if they don't bring in a veteran edge of some description. They need this. They absolutely need this. This is non-negotiable. And it was something that I tweeted about once I seen the Chargers restructure, right, Mack and Bosa's contracts. I thought, for me, if I'm going to do that, if I was in the front office and I made that decision, okay, we're going to bring both of these guys back, that's an automatic trigger to bring back Kyle Van Noy because we need insurance, right? The likelihood of it, right? Percentages, historically, you can look at everything, right? Look at all the analytics that people want to talk about. If you look at analytical models, at least one of them says that either Bosa or Khalil Mack is going to get hurt at some point during the season, right? They're not going to be able to play all 17 games. Just go through their injury histories, you plug in all that data, they will tell you that, yes, there's a good likelihood that one of these guys gets injured. So what do you do at that point? Do you run around and panic, like a chicken with his head cut off? Or do you make the move early in free agency, right? March, April, to have that backup plan? So if they were doing that, if they're going to bring both of these guys back, you have to bring up the backup plan as well, too. You need the insurance. So to me, it doesn't make sense, right? Putting all of your eggs in older players' baskets, right? Not only for them to dominate, right, like everybody wants them to, but to stay healthy while doing it. So to me, it just doesn't make sense why Kyle Van Noy is not re-signed yet. Um, and honestly, if we're looking at it, right, if he's not re-signed, and if the Chargers do go out and maybe they draft an edge, maybe third round or whatever, third, fourth round or whatever, that's who you're looking at to potentially save the season if one of these guys went down, right? And that's not a place that you want to be. You don't want to come in, put that pressure on a rookie, third, fourth round rookie. Yeah, Khalil Mack went down. He's going to be out for 6 weeks. So what we need you to do is come in and save the season. That's not what you want to put on a rookie. Like this is not set up for success. The Chargers are not set up for success. So I'm looking at this thing and I'm just like, I'm really, really worried about this. But there's still time left. Like I said, we are early in the second wave of free agency. So we'll see what they're able to do with this. But I don't like the direction right now. If they're going to load up on defense, fine. But have contingency plans. You can't come out and say, "Oh man, we're injured. We're injured again." And gosh darn it, if it wasn't for these injuries, we would be on the roll. We'd be on a path to the Super Bowl. No, you have to plan for it. You've seen what happened. The injuries happened early last season. Uh, week 2, week 3? That's when the injuries started to happen. They started to pile up as the weeks went along. You can't come into this season being naive and saying, "Man, yeah, well, everybody's healthy now, so we're gonna go and do something now." No, if they players got injured last year, it's a good chance that they get injured again this year. Um, but it's just the nature of the game, and you have to plan around it. You have to be smart about it. And if you are right, you can at least put yourself in the position to maybe possibly compete, and maybe possibly win some of the games that you expect to win, even without your stars. If you make those plans, right, and if you take the steps to address those issues early enough. I don't want the Chargers to be in a position where they have to go out and sign guys again like they did last year, right? They brought back Jeremiah Atachu, right? That dude was a bust, right? He was a second round pick way long ago when it was the San Diego Chargers. He bounced around the league and had to bring him back in an emergency situation, right? And they brought a couple other guys in an emergency situation as well, too. Guys who did absolutely nothing, right, on defense. So if you want to be in that position again, if the Chargers are going to be in that position again, there's no excuses this year. There really isn't no excuses. No injury excuses can be made. You've seen what happened to this team last year. You've seen how they got decimated by injuries. I don't want to hear any excuses when it comes to injuries this year. I really, really don't. I want the Chargers to be prepared, right? Prepare, plan, right? Plan. If you don't plan, you're planning to fail. So just do something with this edge position. Bring in a veteran, right? If it's not Kyle Van Noy, maybe somebody else.